Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about selective breeding in the process of adaptations. This is part 3 of our Adaptations Notes video series, and up to this point we've talked about how the history of how we discovered adaptations by Charles Darwin and his trip to the Galapagos Islands and making his observations with the finches and seeing how the finches had different beaks that were adapted for different types of food on the various islands. We talked about how adaptations happen through mutations. So we've got mutations. We've got somehow this genetic code got messed up. We have good mutations and bad mutations. Mutations are somehow the offspring is different. The genetic code got messed up, but the offspring is different. And good mutations help that offspring to survive longer, like the black jaguar. Versus bad mutations are just going to cause that organism to die off more quickly, like the two-headed cow. And then we see how those adaptations happen through natural selection. Okay, we had the crow picking off all the green beetles because the green beetles were good and those orange, brown beetles were not good. So over time, through natural selection, being survival of the fittest, the orange beetles survived because they weren't green and the crows didn't like them. So they survived and ultimately grew as a population. And then, so we see how adaptations occur, and I mentioned how adaptations don't happen within one generation. They don't happen within one organism. I'm not all of a sudden going to start developing eyes in the back of my head because I need to see all the way around my classroom. It's just not going to happen. Okay, I am who I am. Now, is there a rare instance in which my kids might have eyes in the back of their head because their genetic code got messed up? Sure, that could happen when that genetic code is passed on. And that's how mutations happen, is the genetic code gets passed on, and when it's passed on, it gets messed up somehow. Now, more than likely not going to happen, not that extreme of a mutation, but it does happen, like we saw in the two-headed cow, and you've probably seen, frogs with 8 legs or whatever it may be. But usually those types of mutations are so detrimental, they're so harmful to the organism that the organism is going to die off quicker and not have the chance to pass that on. So adaptations happen over very long periods of time. Okay, many generations, hundreds, thousands, millions of years. The good mutations, okay, get passed on, okay, and those good mutations that are passed on are called adaptations. Okay, and then obviously the bad mutations, the organisms that have bad mutations or they don't adapt, okay, will eventually die off. And that kind of goes back to the survival of the fittest. Some organisms, they don't adapt. They don't have the opportunity to change. They don't have an opportunity. The finch didn't have an opportunity to develop a beak that would eat fruit. So it starves and it dies off, okay? And eventually those become extinct. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about how we make adaptations happen on purpose. Okay, we call that selective breeding. When we as humans want a specific trait in a plant or animal, and we try to breed plants and animals in order to get that specific trait. So, for example, here, okay, I have a mule. Okay, this right here is a mule. Okay, now a mule is a cross between a horse and a donkey. Okay, this is the horse, this is the donkey. Now, back in the 1800s when everything was carried by horse, okay, we didn't have cars and all that other stuff, okay, humans, we needed something that was kind of a mix between a horse and a donkey. A horse is a big, strong animal, okay, can carry heavy loads, pull heavy carts, okay, but the problem with the horse is it doesn't have very sure feet, okay, it stumbles a lot. Okay, and if you were going across rocky terrain, that horse might stumble, trip, maybe fall and hurt itself. Okay. On the other side of that, you have a donkey. Now, a donkey has real, sure feet. Okay, it's very steady on its feet. It can go across rocky terrain, have no problem stepping across rocks and so forth. But it's not strong. It's a smaller animal. It's kind of weak. It's kind of skittish, kind of scared. So you got this big, brave, strong horse, kind of clumsy. You've got this little, kind of weaker, skittish, scared donkey, but really stable, has good feet. So these people knew this, so they crossed the donkey with the horse, and you get the mule. Now the mule has the good properties of the horse and also has the good properties of the donkey. It's big and strong like the horse, but it's also got the sure feet, okay, the sturdy feet of the donkey, okay? And that's how we came about with the mule. So we do this all the time in order to get desired traits, okay? Now probably a more modern day example that we're familiar with is dogs, okay? We got all these different breeds of dogs, and we've been doing this for a while now because we see particular traits in one dog and we see particular traits in other dogs, and we want to do the best of both worlds. So here's a Labradoodle, okay? A Labradoodle. So Labradoodle, if you don't know this, this is a poodle, okay? Poodle got big fluffy hair, you know, they got that curly hair, a pretty animal, pretty dog. And but they're not, you know, as nice, okay? They kind of have a little bit more, they're not as kid friendly, if you will, than other dogs. Here I've got a lab, okay? Labs are really good kid dogs. They're very friendly, okay? If I want the best of both worlds, I put the two together, and the offspring has the pretty coat, the pretty texture, the pretty look of the poodle, and the friendly, good personality of the lab. Okay, so we do this a lot with dogs, just trying to get the best of both worlds. Now, there is the flip side of this, okay? So do you, in certain instances, when you try to get the best of both worlds, get the worst of both worlds? Maybe, you know, if I'm going back to my donkey example, maybe I get a small, weak animal with clumsy feet. Okay, that does happen, okay? It's not surefire. There's no way to guarantee that you're going to get the best traits. But as we do this over time, as we breed these animals over time, you know, just odds, okay, are going to come out in our favor at some point in time and get the best of both worlds. So this is what we call selective breeding and making adaptations happen on purpose. Okay, so this wraps up our video series over adaptations. If at any point in time you need to go back and rewind and watch these again so you get better understanding, please do so, and obviously ask questions in class.